Jay, I had this thought the other day, and it was about successful friends and successful family members, right? People that are in that position in people's lives. My question to you is there a certain level of responsibility that comes along with being a successful friend or family member? And is there also a certain level of guilt that comes along with being a successful friend or family member?
Oh wow. I've always assumed the responsibility, never the guilt. I think that it is, or you can have guilt. People used to call that survivor's remorse. And we really can have that depending upon your situation. Like coming from where I come from, yeah, you can really have that. You know what I mean? Because when I talk to people from my neighborhood, it's always like, I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you survived. And it's really a thing. I really survived that. Now, God is good, so I've been able to survive multiple scenarios in my life. But that portion of time of growing up, yes, we survived, and it's people that didn't. I have friends that are no longer here, and they were murdered. And being someone who's shot themselves, me, and having other people, family members, and close people that been shot in wheelchairs for the rest of their lives. People I was in the mix with, stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's you survived. But I always assumed the responsibility. I never assumed the guilt. I've always, you know, I've never turned my back on my people. Somebody, you had to do something to me for me to say, all right, we done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had to really do something to me. You had to, um, and there's no need to go into that, but people have, and I'm like, all right, yo, we good. We got to sever ties. But outside of that, nah, I've always assumed the responsibility. Like, hey, if you need to know something, my homeboys back in the day still hit me to this day about business stuff because they know that I'm in business, and I always got to answer for them. You know what I'm saying? It's never. Sometimes people, it ain't what they want to hear because this type of business take a whole lot longer than the type of business that I'm familiar with and they familiar with me doing. And so that's a little difficult. That's always been a difficult scenario. But outside of that, it's never been, me turning anybody away. Family members, I'm always looking to help or see how I can help. Um, yeah, so it just all depends on who you are. Some people can easily go to the guilt portion and say, man, I don't feel right that I'm good and that person not good. And then I think that the world and society, we gotta watch how we say things. You know what I'm saying? Because you like, especially the super Christian people who would say, God loved me so much, and I was able to get this, and so it's implying that it can be easily implicated that God don't love this other person. You know what I'm saying? That's why that didn't happen. And that's not how, if you a real believer, you know that God don't operate like that. Um, we just gotta stop doing that. We gotta stop, some people are going to go for it, some people are not. Some people are going to, take advantage of opportunities, some people are not. And even if it's a family member, friend, or whatever, you gotta still love them. And even if it's from a distance, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. When you can't come play basketball with me if I go to the NBA, you know. But that don't mean that I can't holler at you on the off season and say, "Hey, come through." And you put your protections in places. Like I that don't mean you got to go back to the hood. If you got all this money, send for him or her. Tell her to come over here. Boom. When you done, y'all had enough time. I put it back on the plane. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But again, I just believe that it depends on the person. It depends on the person. I think that you can go to the negative or the positive. I just always chose the positive. I always felt positive. I never felt guilty about any of that. I only felt guilty when I lost a friend that wasn't in the mix. I had a friend that was murdered that wasn't in the mix, that wasn't doing the things that I was doing and none of the rest of us was doing, and he ended up getting murdered. That's a reason to feel guilty. But because we were doing, everybody was in the mix, getting their hands dirty, doing stuff they had no business doing, and I was able to survive. I'm so grateful. Oh man, I'm so grateful for that. There's no way I can feel negative. I really understand what was going on. Especially hindsight is 2020. So I'm like, damn, I'm terrified of what the hell that was back then. I don't even know who that person was and what was going on. That you were willing to even put yourself in that situation. And for some instances, it wasn't really no money when you look at it like, for that little bit of money, you did all that? Nah, man. So, all I can feel is gratitude, 1,000%. And so that leads me not to have any negative feelings towards that or guilt or none of that. So I lean towards, the responsibility or just making sure that, my phone, my people's always have access to me one way or the other.